This is my final story. I've come to the conclusion that my words have real consequences outside the pages they were written on. It all started a few weeks ago. I was feeling creative and wrote a short story about a young man who meets a gruesome end to a knife-wielding maniac. His name was Rupert McManus. The story was a hit on the message boards. People enjoyed the blood and scare, and I was happy. For a moment. 2 days later, I was watching the news when the anchor gave a grim report. An elderly man named Rupert McManus had been stabbed by a home intruder who was high on meth. I was shocked. I literally had to recheck my story to make sure the names were the same. I felt terrible, but calmed myself down with the promise that this was the world's biggest coincidence. Later that night, I laid in bed, trying not to think about Rupert, putting my mind on other things. I began to think of another story. My second story was about a couple, Mary and David Thurton. They were on a budget vacation when they find themselves locked in a hotel that is closed up for the winter. As they look for food in a maze of corridors and locked passages, they eventually go mad and begin to eat each other. It ended with the cleaners finding 2 skeletons in the dining room. That might be a bit cheesy, but I never said I was a great writer. I was proud of my story. Before going to sleep, I posted it on my favorite stories group and fell into a wondrous sleep. The next morning, I got up feeling refreshed and headed off to work without a care. A few days later, I was bored and decided to check my social media pages. I try not to do it daily. Whatever I was feeling in the moments before checking my Reddit disappeared so quickly and was replaced with dread. Someone commented that I was cruel for making fun of dead children like that. Another comment asked for an explanation, and the original commenter posted a news link. Mary and David Thurton, brother and sister, had just passed away due to parental neglect. The coroner had found salmonella to be the cause due to their eating of spoiled food served to them by their father, who had been an untreated schizophrenic. They were 11 and 10. The article said that they died on Thursday morning. I had posted my story on Wednesday evening. What was happening to me? Was I psychic? Was God playing a prank on me? If I was smart, I would have stopped writing from then on and cut off my fingers for good measure. But in all honesty, if I had powers, I needed to abuse it first. Over the next few days, I toyed with ideas of names just to see what would happen. If this power was mine, I should probably use it, I thought. Perhaps my landlord, who refuses to fix my shower head. Or maybe even my boss. He's always making fun of me to impress the secretary. I eventually decided, while looking at a news site, to use the name of a pedophile who had just been found not guilty of molesting a child at a nearby school. Reading the story filled me with such rage, I could feel it pulsing through my fingers. I opened up my laptop and began typing. James Cartwright's story was not pretty. It involved torture and him being violated in every way I could think of. As I looked at the Word document, I pondered if I should delete it and walk away. Does the world need more death? With my heart pounding, I decided to publish it. If this power was real, then that sick, demented man deserved to feel the brunt of it for what he did. After I clicked send, I waited. Nothing. I clicked refresh on my page a few times, and nothing again. Why weren't people commenting? I googled up the pedophile, hoping to see that he had been punished. Nothing. In my haste, I wrote another 4 stories, all involving people in the news who had committed heinous crimes, from James Frontman, who beat up an old woman and robbed her, Susan Keith, who glassed a young woman at the bar, Trevor Fleming, shot a family member for the mob, and Kylie Woolen. She had just been arrested for murdering the new girlfriend of an ex-lover. I was hasty with their stories, sloppy and with no development. I posted one after the other, actively hoping these people would die, and to my wonder if they did. And then I went to sleep. I woke up to the most beautiful news. In a most bizarre coincidence, all 4 characters of my story were at the courthouse when one glorious Thursday morning, an unnamed terrorist group blew it up in the name of anarchy. Their names were listed in the memorial list on the TV. I paused and looked closer, as there were many on the list, and they were in alphabetical order. I felt euphoric. I was a god, practically. I couldn't explain how this blessing worked, but whenever I wrote someone's name down and posted it, they would somehow meet a gruesome end. Even the minor characters I found out with more Googling. I could kill anyone with just the type of their names and clicking publish. The pen, or at least the keyboard, is truly mightier than the sword. I needed to do more people, high-profile ones. I continued over the next few days to write story after story. Presidents, religious leaders, and celebrities were all on that list. I posted a few, but the rest are still backed up on my hard drive and will never see the light of day. My world came crashing down when it came to pass that the subject of my 3rd story came to his untimely end. James Cartwright's death had taken longer than the rest. I guess it had a lot of moving parts to it. As I saw the article pop up on my notifications, I was overjoyed. Until I began reading. James Cartwright Jr., son of suspected child molester Neville Cartwright, has been murdered in a suspect revenge attack by a sadistic group. I gulped as I read further. It was horrific. Every horrible detail that I had imagined to be enacted on the father had been done to the son. I felt all the power I had felt in the past slowly drain from my body. I had caused a child whose only crime was being a son to a terrible man to go through what no one should. Violated repeatedly and killed by a horde of maniacal bastards. I sunk into my chair and began to weep. I looked up at the computer. I had a finished story ready to publish. I picked up the keyboard and smashed the screen. I screamed into a dazed frenzy. When I came to consciousness, I was covered in my own blood and on the floor. I didn't get much sleep that night. Over the last few weeks, my words had led to the death of over 150 people. I should feel nothing at this point, but I do. I lay in bed with my eyes pointed at the ceiling, and all I can see is the carnage that I have created. This blessing turned out to be a curse in disguise. I wonder if I could write a story to make things better. I grab my phone and begin typing. This is my full confession and last story. May I meet the end that I deserve. But now I sleep. Written by yours truly, Andrew M.J. Smith.
Please leave your message